Hi, so welcome to the part 2 of this tutorial series of handling netCDF files using Python. Now, in the previous video, I gave you a bit of an introduction of what netCDF files are and from which side we are going to use the netCDF files for the demonstration purposes of this tutorial series. And if you haven't watched that tutorial, I suggest you to first check out the part 1 of this tutorial. And now let's see how we can write a small Python script to sort of bulk download all of these netCDF files, which contains the temperature data for the Monsoon Asia region. So first of all, let's get started by creating a new Python script file. As you can see over here, I have already browsed into my desired folder. So I'm going to call this as bulk download netCDF. Should be a .py file. And first, in order to do this task, you need to import a library called requests. So I'm going to import that library. This is normally an inbuilt function. You do not have to install it separately. Now, if you want to test whether you successfully imported the library or not, you can just run this. And as you can see, we did not get any error. Now, since you know that we are going to access this particular website where they sort of store all these netCDF files, and we are going to download it one by one, we need to copy this URL. And I'm going to create one variable called URL, and I will put this name like this. However, after we direct the URL to be like this, we will again have to sort of jump one file after another based on the year using a for loop. So for the time being, I'm going to leave this URL variable like this. And the other thing is that if you want to access this URL, you have to provide the username and the password which you created before. In the first part of the tutorial, I showed you how to get the username and the password in order to access this information. So again, if you are going to do a bulk download, you again have to provide the full username and the password which you just created during the first part of the tutorial. And we are going to save those two information also into two different variables. So I'm going to create another variable called username. And over here, you have to provide your username which you received into your email address. So for APHRODITE'S, this is actually going to be the email address which you registered your file, which you used to register your file. And the second variable that you need to create is the password. So for the username and password, for the time being, I'm just going to put something like this. Later, when we actually run the command, we will update the username and the password using the correct username and the password which I received. So the next thing that I want to do is actually to create a small for loop, which shall enable me to sort of run through each and every one of these files. So as you can see over here, you see some similarities actually in all of these files. You see the first part of the file name is actually quite similar. Only when it comes to the file name, only when it comes to the year, it differs from one another. So for example, you can see that it starts from 1961, 1962, and goes all the way up to 2015. But the rest of the file name actually remains same. So that's actually a good thing for me. Now I can create a for loop which has this exactly the same file name, but I can vary through a set of numbers which starts from 1961 all the way up to 2015. Now, just for the demonstration purposes, maybe I'll select only the first 6 years from 1961 up to 1966. So for that, I'm going to create a variable called years, and I'm going to create a NumPy array which shall give me an array which consists of numbers from 1961 up to 1966. So to do that, you need to again import the NumPy library as np. All right, so I'm going to use this arrange function, np.arrange, and since I want to get my years printed from 1961 up to 1966, let's see what happens if we put 1961 up to 1966. If I were to run this one, for the timing I'll comment this out, and if I say print yes, you can see that it's actually printing only up to 1965. So it starts at 1961 and prints only up to 1965, but I want to download the data until 1966 and ideally until 2015 when we finalize the script. But for the time being, I just need to download only up to 1966. So if you want to do that, you just have to go just one unit up. Instead of 1966, you have to type 1967 here. And when you do that, you can see that the array has now numbers starting from 1961, integers starting from 1961 up to 1966. All right. So now I can go ahead and proceed to write the for loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a for loop saying that for yes in years, or maybe I'll put this one here because this is the variable that we are specifying, and this is the one that we are going to actually loop inside, iterate inside. So this yes is basically referring to this NumPy array. All right, now I'm going to copy this URL which I specified, and I'm going to put it over here because in each iteration the URL is actually supposed to change. It's not a fixed URL. It's supposed to change based on the year that we specified over here. So one way that I can actually easily define and modify this URL would be to copy this rest of this part and paste it over here. Well, I don't need these brackets. And over here is the place where we need to specify the changes. So for that I can do something like this. I will isolate this part just so that it's going to be clear for you guys. Alright, so you see that I open the... So you see that I have my first inverted comma over here. And I'm going to close this by putting another inverted comma just after the dot. Alright, and then I'm going to put a plus sign over here. After that, I don't want a fixed number. I actually want, during each iteration, each of these numbers to actually be automatically specified in here. So I'm going to put a plus sign over here, and I'm going to convert these integers into a string whenever it loops over each and every entry, because now by default when it loops through each and every entry it's actually identifying this as an integer. But now, because I'm going to actually combine this number into this whole string, I need to actually have this number as well. I need to have this number converted into a string before, because you cannot actually add integers and strings together, but you can easily convert an integer into becoming a string. So over here, and then I'm going to specify the variable name that I specified over here. So in each iteration, it will first detect 1961 and it will add 1961 into the rest of this URL, and during the next iteration it will add 1962 and so on, all the way up to 1966, or up to any year that we specify over here. Right, so I can do something like this, just to close the parentheses. And after putting the plus sign, I need to add this rest of this part into this whole statement. So I again have to specify an inverted comma over here and close it from here. All right, now this looks okay to me. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to specify a variable called R. And now we are going to use this requests library which you just imported. Requests.get. Now this is the place actually where you can specify your URL. Now since I have already typed the URL in over here, I can just put the URL over here. And you can even give some authentication keys. In this case, we need the authorization to log into this to this data portal and download files. So that authorization is provided by your username and password. So I'm just going to create another variable called. So I'm just going to specify the arguments of auth, which is equal to. Now you can either type it. Now you can either type out the username and the password over here, separating them by a comma, or since you have already actually specified these two over here, you can just simply copy your username and password. All right. Keeping in mind that later I'm going to update these two, because whatever I specified here is actually not my real username and password. And also you specify another argument and allow the redirects to be true. All right. Next you have to specify open, and over here you need to specify the file name by which you would like to save each of these files. Now if I were to actually download it directly from the file, I assume that it gets downloaded using this full file name. Using this full file name. Actually, in this case, I am not really required to have that full file name, because I already know this general information, such as this resolution. The other things like it's a monsoon Asia region, and this is the average temperature. So I mean, these information are quite general for each and every file. So instead of wanting to have this entire file name, I specify that here. Over here I just need the year, I mean the file names to contain only the year. But again, as you can see over here, these files are .gz files. Actually .gc stands for gunzip. It's a file format which is quite commonly used in order to zip files in. So you still have to retain that file name over here. Otherwise, once you download the file, it won't have any file format, so that you won't be able to extract it properly. And specify here wb write r dot content. All right. Now what I can do is to maybe do a test run. Now in order to do a test run, again you have to include your username and password. Now if you have forgotten how to access your username and password, this is the email that you normally would receive once you register in this APHRODITE'S website. And over here you will get your username and password. Actually your ID will be your username and the PW is your password. So just copy and paste these two entries into your Python script. So I copy my username, that's basically my email address. And then I copy my password over here. Now I will open the file where I actually keep my script, because when we download these files, this is the place where the files will get downloaded into. So now what I can do is I can just press run. And at the same time, I'll keep this open. And now if you look here over here, you can see this red button. It means actually something is running. So let's see whether it gets downloaded into and collected into this bulk download netCDF file or not. Okay, now you can see that 1961 is already in, and it's about 64 megabytes. Now, I mean, the time which it requires for to execute the download, now that varies depending on the speed of your internet connection. Now mine isn't the best, so as you can see there's a bit of a delay between each download. I think about 10 seconds. It takes about 10 seconds to download the files of corresponding to 1 year. But I think that's not too much of a delay. Now, as you might guess, if we downloaded the files from 1961 up to 2015, it's going to take quite a while. We have the files from 1961 up to 1966. So this is basically what I wanted to show you through this tutorial. Now if I open this one, you can see that it's this .nc is the file format of the netCDF file. So now if I were to finish the tutorial from here, one would wonder that it's just the zip file that I downloaded, but I actually want the raw netCDF. I actually want the raw netCDF file. So would there be another script that we can actually write in order to extract these zip files extract the file inside the zip file into probably a separate folder? Yeah, that's actually what I'm going to do next, because it would be useless if I just download the gun zip files and then do nothing with it. So maybe I'll collect all of the extracted files into a new folder called netCDF temperature. Okay. So I will actually write another script to extract all these files into this. All right. So in order to do that, you need to have another library called PA tools, because using this PA tools library, it's quite easy to actually extract zip files, particularly gun zip files. All right, so first I'll actually show you what this PA tools library is. Yeah, actually the correct name is PA tool. So you can install this PA tool library simply by going to your Anaconda prompt. You can right click and write as the administrator, and over here you can type pip install PA tool, and you can hit enter. Now if I hit enter, you will see that it detects that I have already installed this library, but in your case, if you haven't, it'll get installed without any issue. So please go ahead and do that first, because you need to have that library already configured in order to do the extraction of files. So let me create another Python script called extracting the zip files. All right, now the first thing that you can do is you just import your PA tools library which you just downloaded. So we can just import, and something to keep in mind, that even though you install the library in the form by the name PA tool, when you import the library, you have to actually import it in a bit of a different way, and it shall go like this: PA tool IB. Basically it's PA tool lib, something like that. So you can test whether you successfully imported it or not by just running it. And you can see that we did not get any error. So the library is already in. And now I'm just going to run through all of these files that we downloaded. Imagine that we downloaded files from 1961 all the way up to 2015. Now that's going to be quite a number of files. So of course you cannot do it one by one. You again have to use a for loop actually to run through each and every one of these files. So I'm going to create another for loop. Now before that we have to import the OS library too, because I need to read all the files inside this bulk download netCDF folder. Alright, so once you do that, you can again make a small for loop for zip files in os.listdir. Now this listdir is basically listing all the files that's inside a specific folder that you would provide. So if I just do this and say print zip files, now just keep in mind this zip files is a name that I give by myself. I can just put a very random name, ABCDEF, and if you do that, that's the file name that you're going to actually that you have decided to give, and it needs to be the same over here. But as you might see, it's better to actually put a file name which makes a little bit more sense than having just ABCDEF. So that's the reason for that. Now if I run this one, you can see that it's actually listing down all the files that we have inside. But the objective of this tutorial is just to extract the gunzip files. So I'm just going to filter this out by using another if statement. Only if the last three characters of each and every file is equivalent to gunzip, then only display that. That's actually my if statement. So if zip files, this is the way to specify you read only the last three characters from the end, not from the start. And if that's equal to .gz, then do what? Maybe then you print again for me just to check whether the code correctly executes or not. Alright, now there's some error. If you're specifying the if statements actually, and when you're equaling it to something, you have to put equals. It's not just single equal. And now if I run, you can see that now it's reading only the files which has the .gz file format at the end. Alright, so that's one step closer. And now it's the time to use this pa2lib library that we just installed. And there's one functionality called extract archive. It's already here. Extract archive. And in that over here, and it's quite good that we can specify the output directory. So all the extracted files will actually get collected inside this file. Right now, since we have this open already, I'll run this one and see what happens. Now you can see that it got extracted quite successfully. But it has some small issue. Now if you try to see any information regarding these files, you can see actually there's no file format. Now this is one limitation that I actually came across when using this pa2lib, but it's not anything that's very crucial, because we can very easily fix it. And the way to fix it would be to actually manually add the .nc file, so that actually this file becomes a fully functional netCDF file instead of becoming a very unknown mysterious file. So what I can do is I can just come out from this for loop and maybe create another for loop for extracted files in os.listdir. Now I need to have the file path to this. And in this OS module, there's a functionality called os.rename. So what I'm going to do is basically rename the entire set of files. So I'm just going to click extracted files over here, and then I need to rename it by extracted files. Now, as you can see, in each iteration, this extracted files is actually going to be this file name. In this case, it's just plain 1961, 1962. So I want to add the .nc string to the end of that file name. So that would be something like this, .nc. Yeah, and one more thing before I proceed with this, because I have to change my current working directory. If I go back here, my current working directory is actually over here because I got started because I saved my .py file to get started in this folder. But the files that I'm referring to are actually inside this. So I need to I need to sort of change my current working directory. So you can do that quite easily using the OS module. Yeah, os.chdir basically stands for change directory. And I'm going to ask to change the directory to be the same directory where I have saved those mysterious files which do not have any file format. And we can actually read one file after another, and we can sort of rename the file to contain this .nc file format. So now we can just go ahead and delete this one and ask the script to sort of do the extraction process again, and I will show you what happened. Now you can see that actually extraction process happened, and afterward it executed this small script which was written in order to rename the file to have to contain this .nc file format. Now this one by itself is actually a very fully functional .nc file, which is a netCDF file. Now if you were to open Python if you were to use Python to open this file, you would not have any issue because it's actually a fully functional netCDF file. Now I would also like to introduce you to a software called if you go to this website, I'll put the link down in the description below. You can see that actually it's from NASA. You can download, if you're using Windows, you can actually download it from here. So let me just go ahead and download this panoply. This is basically a viewer. Okay, once you have downloaded, you will be able to actually directly open the file. Use this panoply. It's an executable file, and you can open the datasets that you downloaded. You can go to File, Open. Now you can see that we can navigate, and even the program recognizes that all of these are netCDF files. So for example, if I want to open this 1963 file, you can just click Open. And these are these different variables that has been stored inside the netCDF file. I'm going to talk about all of these information in detail during the upcoming tutorials, because actually this part is sort of a complementary part where I'm showing you how to visualize these netCDF files. So the variable that we're interested in is actually this t_average over here. So you can just double click on it, and you can leave all the settings to be default, and you can create it. And you can see that we very successfully opened the netCDF file. Over here you can see the data, the time period for which the data is available. It's available from 1961, should be all the way up to the 31st of December. So if you just click maybe in one of the dates, you can see that over here the colors change. So what these colors actually refer to is the daily mean temperature interpolated into 0.25 degree grids, and you can see that the region is actually only covering the monsoon Asia region, which was specified by APHRODITE'S already. Even though this panoply is not actually able to compute complex arithmetical tasks, it's only just good enough to actually visualize the files, just to see what are the variables, just to get an idea about the overall structure of the netCDF file. But if you want to do all these complex arithmetic operations, that's what we use Python for. So that's why you need to stay tuned for the upcoming tutorials of this series, so that you won't miss out how to perform all of the required tasks in order to pertaining to extracting the data from the netCDF files, how to put them into, how to perform various manipulations, how to do various types of computations, and even how to visualize netCDF files within Python itself, and also finally how to save netCDF files, how to create your own netCDF files using Python. So this is actually going to be a very comprehensive set of tutorials. So thank you very much for watching, as we have reached the end of this tutorial, and I hope you will stay tuned for the upcoming tutorials as well. And if you do like these kind of videos, show your support by hitting the like button, and you can also consider subscribing. So I'll see you in the next one.